Recording on this. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the Carousel Podcast. I have a very special guest here today, Michael Nemcik, who is a hospitality professional. We want to talk about the bear and what he's calling the wokeification of the kitchen. The Bear is an interesting show. I have wanted to talk about it. Also, I published a piece about Montana that's going absolutely effing insane on the internet, and food plays a big part in this piece because it's like about culture and the hollowing out of culture. Nemcik is one of the smartest people I know, and one of the smartest people in particularly about food and wine. And he has a ton of experience as a beverage director, as a manager, as all kinds of things at various high-end places in LA. So we just wanted to kick this off by talking about the Bear. And hi, Michael.
I think the other thing I would add is that, I started in the kitchen. I transitioned to, the front of the house, but I started in high school, on the line as a line cook, as a prep cook, as a, in garde manger in the cold line. So for me, like watching shows about kitchen life and culinary life, I take a special interest in how they're portraying things, and this one was definitely hyped up to be super realistic, and it also featured Maddie Matheson, who everybody that's in the food world really loves him, because I'm not just a front of the house guy, I'm a back of the house guy as well. I worked as a line cook. I started slinging chicken wings at Hooters in Orlando, Florida. So that gives me all the credibility in the world when it comes to fine dining. And, I wanted to really love this show. I wanted it to be great. I wanted it to really be like the cooking show that everybody references as legitimate and reality. But unfortunately, I think, it missed the mark on so many points. So, we can get into like, exactly why it missed the mark, and, why I think it's, a bigger part of the problem with just restaurant culture in general.
Okay, yeah. So this show is on Hulu. It's about a Chicago Italian beef restaurant. And for people who are not from Chicago, they don't know what Italian beef. Italian beef is like a gyro, or it's like a very iconic local food that's very delicious and comes with hot peppers. And these places in Chicago take a lot of pride in the things they make. So this is about a like Top Chef type, like high-end fine dining cuisine chef who gets like falls from grace and has to go work at this Italian beef shop. And it's like very gritty, and you can tell they casted all the ugly people they could find in Hollywood. It was like, this is like what Chicago people look like, Yeah,
and that's the interesting thing, because the show actually got a lot of blowback for casting quote unquote coastal elites and putting them in Chicago roles. So it's just funny because you and I are, LA people, I guess, even though I don't live there anymore. But, we obviously we look at it like, wow, they really did cast, LA people. They really look like Chicago people.
Yeah.
Feel like, oh, they cast a bunch of LA people. But I mean, let me defend the show really quickly for a second, because everybody really ripped apart the fact that they got so much of the food stuff wrong. I mean, I just have a list here. An Italian beef shop would never serve spaghetti. They would never bake their own bread.
The bread baking's weird. It's like they would never do that.
I mean, there's just a list that's been going around Instagram. They don't serve fries, but they serve spaghetti. What's that about?
Why they don't serve fries?
Yeah, in the show they don't serve fries.
That's total bullshit. Every place like that serves fries. I grew up going to these places. These places were like my absolute favorite place to be.
They
like
just mishmash a lot. Yeah. Like they don't serve family meal at restaurants like that.
Yeah.
There's no family meal. Just the whole ideology of like how he did the Italian beef is not how you would do an Italian beef. You wouldn't cook your beef like that and thick slice it by hand. You would need a machine to slice it paper thick. So technically what he was making is a steak sandwich. That's
which is not an Italian beef, right? Because Italian beef is very, very thin. It's ultra thin.
Exactly.
And you need a machine for that. It's true. Why would they fuck all that up?
The giardiniera too, like the giardiniera, like they show making that, day of, and like giardiniera is pickled vegetables. So that would take like 3 days to make.
Yeah,
Or,
it's not
mean,
just pickled vegetables. It's a very specific type of pickled vegetables that like goes on sandwiches and
right. So like, but like, I think all of that criticism is fine. Like, okay, it's a television show. Like, they don't need to get all that right for it to be a good show. That's where I'll defend it. But what I would say about it, like in general, is that the show was more about therapy than it was about anything else, and that's what ruined it for me. I found myself skipping through so much of it because I think that it's really popular right now to talk about restaurants and kitchens as these like extremely stressful, difficult places to work that just, oh my God. I mean, there was an article, I think, from somebody in Eater in New York that's like, I felt so triggered. I couldn't even watch it. I had to turn it off. And I think, you know, in my conversation with you about this previously, I'm just like, first of all, like, I'm so tired of people saying chopping onions and getting yelled at is like the most difficult job in the world, because obviously, you know, working in, you know, Eastern Kentucky in a steel mill or a coal mine for 80 cents a day, or working in the abattoir in Chicago, you know, where humans are falling into boiling vats. I mean, there are just so many other jobs that are like, wow, you know, I mean, isn't there like, are there shows about this? The world's most dangerous catch, or people are getting like fish hooks in their, you know, in their back and stuff like that. I mean, I've worked in a lot of kitchens and seen a lot of screaming and yelling. And, you know, I think that is the problem with Hollywood, is that's what they want to portray because that sells. But the main issue with that is that's not how successful kitchens run. And we could go into that ad nauseum and just talk about how the best, the highest performing, the most successful chefs out there are not screaming at their employees. They realize that labor is one of your highest expenses. You're not going to sit there and scream and yell and throw things. Now, granted, I've been a part of kitchens where that happens on occasion. However, what these shows get wrong is the chef is a CEO. He's running a business. So a CEO just doesn't get to work and all of a sudden start cooking with no plan. Like, that's not how a chef's day work. Like that first scene, the first video, or the first episode, excuse me, where he receives the beef and it's raw, just the right weight. Like, right off the bat, you know, just think if you were in any other business and you got the wrong order, would you just accept it and be okay with that? That's not how it works in the restaurant industry either. There's so many in Chicago, of all places. How many beef vendors are in the world's butcher shop? Like, how many? This is where beef butchery started. So he probably could have made 15 phone calls to 15 other vendors that would have loved to have his business and say, hey, I need XYZ. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a kitchen and we've rejected an order and been like, nope, this isn't right. These squash blossoms are wilting. This is purgent. Sorry, we want it. Nope, we're not taking it. And then they jump on a truck and rush to get over to correct your order. Like, that was just completely wrong. And again, you know, I think you talk about high performing kitchens, and that was really the disconnect. I think the main disconnect in this show is that he supposedly comes from Noma and a kitchen where it's fine dining, where every day everyone's sitting down, perfectly manicured, wearing clean, you know, well-kempt, well-dressed outfits, and with pieces of papers and pencils, and just going on and on about, this is our plan, this is our strategy, this is what we're going to do. You don't just jump into war and battle with no plan. And that's another thing that you know, so again, like, we could just keep going on. I'm ranting now, but
so why do you think people are into this show? Because people are kind of into it.
People are into it because it's really popular right now to talk about mental health, and it's really popular to talk about like how people don't talk about mental health. So anything that you could do to shine light on a facet of society where it's mentally unhealthy and like people don't talk about it, like that's going to resonate with people.
Right.
You know? So and I just feel, again, like, to my point, like, yeah, kitchens are, you know, can be stressful environments. It's hot, you know, people are vulgar, but that's not all kitchens. And it's not, and I don't think it is anywhere close to the hardest job out there. So I just feel like that's largely like snowflakery. I mean, that's just snowflakery. I just think that's utterly ridiculous. Number one.
It is trying to present the kitchen in this way of like, they're trying to tell this same Hollywood story that has been told with the mafia, with advertising. They're trying to kind of Hollywoodify the kitchen, which is interesting because the kitchen has resisted that forever. Like there really is there's no Don Draper, Tony Soprano, or Breaking Bad guy of cooking. That's never really happened. And so it's funny that they're trying to do that, but it's kind of working. That's the thing. It's like, it's kind of like, it feels like people are into it. Like they're kind of like ready for that.
They're into the site. I mean, and this is the thing, the reason why I was skipping through so much of it is that they don't really invest a lot in character development. I had a conversation with Steve Dolinsky, who's a Chicago food critic, a couple weeks back, because he's the foremost expert on pizza. And he said he wrote a screenplay, a treatment for a pizza show, because the history of Chicago pizza is like crazy. And he's like, nobody in LA wanted to pick it up. And I'm like, well, I lived in LA. He's like, do you know anybody? And I'm like, no, not really. But that show would kill because it's full of characters that are interesting, that have backgrounds, that have backstories. Like we got so little of anybody's backstory. It just seemed like ridiculous. Like this girl, Sydney. I mean, I think everybody's kind of attacking her, but like, oh, all of a sudden you have time to write a 30-page book report / business plan. I've never met a sous chef
that was the most ridiculous part. She shows up and she's just like, I've written a 35-year-old or 35-page binder of suggestions about the business.
Yeah.
And it's like she was trained. What was it? She was like in the CIA. What was it?
Yeah, no, she went to the culinary. That's exactly where I went, actually.
Right. Sorry. She went to the Culinary Institute. So she went to like a top place and worked at top restaurants. And then she also is now at the Italian beef shop. And she has time to like, just write up a quick 35-page like binder of suggestions that I'm sure are all like great suggestions, right? Like,
and she's talking about to-goes and food costs. And here we have the chef who apparently has worked at the best restaurant in the world. And I mean, like the first thing anybody, not even chef, like logical human being, you're going into a business that you have no idea how it's functioning. You're going to want to look at the financials. He finds out in like episode 3 that they owe $300,000. Wow. Like you're not just going to open. Oh, we can't not open for a service. It'll bury us. Yeah, you can, because your expenses typically in every restaurant I've ever worked at, your expenses typically are the nut that you have to crack every day. You have to pay for that labor. So cutting that labor, oftentimes closing for a couple days, saves you a hell of a lot more money than staying open. So it's just like so many, and I think, you know what, like I said, they didn't need to get everything right. They didn't even need to come remotely right on the food. I just think making it so many of these like cut scenes where he's just like in the alley, today was really bad for me, chef. Everybody yelled at me. They sabotaged my onions. Like, come on. Like, I don't want to watch that, and then the whole situation.
No, that scene where she's like lecturing him about like her day is just so, and he's like, yeah, you're right. You're really right.
I read an article in the Atlantic talking about the brutal, the brutalist system of the brigade,
So what is this brigade system? What is this?
So there's this guy, Auguste Escoffier, who was in the French military. And this was a time when kitchens were places of barbarism. People were drunk. Nobody listened. It was loud. There was yelling. There was no order, no structure. And Auguste Escoffier comes in and he institutes this order. He divides labor. It's what you would do in any business. You would say, you know what? This is the guy that's going to do the sauce. He's going to be the saucier. This is the garde manger. This is going to be the sous chef. This is going to be the chef de partie. He gave everybody a job, everybody a role. He instituted structure, order. He was everything you read about him, he was very quiet. He was insisted upon calm and quiet and high function in his kitchens. He was not Gordon Ramsay. He was not screaming. And if you go back to Franklin, and this is the Gordon Ramsay's part of the problem too, because people also think that screaming is how it is. But you go and listen to somebody like Eric Ripert or, Corey Lee at Benu in San Francisco, and these people are not screaming in their kitchens because they don't have time to scream. They're focused and they're functioning. And honestly, that scene in the second episode where like the guy's in his ear yelling and telling him how much he sucks when he's plating, that was the best part of it. I was laughing hysterically at that part because, again, let's step back. This show is supposed to be a comedy. Right? How much did you laugh during the show? Not much. because it was about therapy. It wasn't
Yeah,
about
that's what is people. It's like another one of these comedies that's not funny. It's like it's a comedy, but it doesn't make you laugh. You never laugh. There's never like ah ha ha ha. It's always like oh.
So Sydney
okay.
should have been she should have been the one being like, hey, can we make this? Should have been all excited for it to be a brigade system, because that would have mean that it's not only a system that she probably grew up in if she went to the CIA and learned from, but that would have made that system, that kitchen, much more effective. So the fact that she was against it was really strange. But I mean, again, like on and on and on through the show, every single episode kind of, reflects what I call this wokeification of the kitchen. You gotta reflect a reality that's not really the case, and we can kind of go into that as well.
Okay, what do you mean a reality that's not really the case? What do you mean?
Well, let's talk about the demographics of the kitchen, right? And I think I kind of talked a little bit about this in our conversation before we recorded, in that you have a lot of women working in the kitchen, and the minorities that you see typically are not African Americans. I mean, depending on the region that you're in, you see a lot more white people, a lot more Hispanic people. I mean, especially in Los Angeles, I mean, it's 60-70% Hispanic. I worked in kitchens where, I mean, my Spanish is pretty darn good, because for 14 years, I worked with people from Central and South America for every day. So, it's just like this, having, all of these people, it's almost like society wants to reflect a reality that's woke, but it's not the reality that you see in the kitchen. That's not what you're going to interact with.
Because what would it be more like? Yeah, right. It wouldn't be like a bunch of people just like, what would it be like?
You're not going to have a black guy pastry chef. I mean, like, honestly, 14 years, I've never met a black man pastry chef. Never, not one time. I'm sure there's one, and I'm sure he's great, but I've never met one. You're not going to see a black girl sous chef. I mean, one of my really close friends is a black girl sous chef, and there are black girl sous chefs out there, but like, how rare is that? Like, incredibly rare. Like in a beef restaurant in Chicago, I mean, maybe, I don't know. That just seems unlikely. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that just, and I'm thinking, like, from a screenwriter standpoint, like, how are we going to make this more realistic? I know. Let's put something that would probably rarely never happen in there.
Right. Yeah. Like, especially for a show like this, because a show like this is like, it's relying, because you're right, it's not funny, so it's not relying on jokes. So it's relying on like cinema verite, it's like relying on like, it's real, it's so real, like the guy, like, they talk to each other like real people, but then it's like it's this phony world that they're setting up, where it's like genius black girl sous chef who is like a business wizard. It's like, give me a fucking break. It's like, it's just so not realistic. Not that black women can't do that. It's just that character doesn't exist. It's like, that's not a real character.
And that's what they want to portray. And that's unfortunately, why I think there's a window of opportunity for somebody to go out there and write a real show.
Yeah, because I think there's a demand for it. There people want to see this kitchen show. That's why people are tuning in. But like, it doesn't really pay off. It's like, it's almost there, but it's just too phony. And it's like, if somebody just made the real version of this, it would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. But and that's kind of why I say it's the wokeification of the kitchen, right? Because what would the real version of this be? It wouldn't be sexy. Yeah. It wouldn't be exciting. It would be a bunch of people speaking Spanish. They wouldn't be eating that risotto for staff meal. I'll tell you that much. Right. So it's just, I don't know. I feel like, there's so many issues with it, and we can kind of finish up with, just, it's not just this show, it's the culinary land in general.
Okay, so tell us about the wokeification of the James Beard Award.
Okay, so James Beard Awards are like the food awards for Oscars. They're held in Chicago every year, and it used to be something that, I think, maybe it still is. I'm not really in that world anymore, but it used to be something that a chef really aspired to have. The winners every year just get farther and further from the original, I think, mission of what James Beard was trying to do. James Beard was a culinary monster, and he was a person that really advanced food culture in America. and that's kind of that's pretty much his goal, to further and, extend and, push the boundaries of American food culture. And I think that when you look at some of these awards, and I think I highlighted a couple of them. I'm not looking at this, some of the stuff that I talked about, but best new chef or outstanding, the winner of outstanding chef and the winner for best chef in Chicago. Now, Chicago's a little bit different. I haven't been here forever. There is a very large, predominantly African-American population on the South Side, and there are quite a few African-Americans here. So I can't really speak with, any authority on the ethnic makeup of, the culinary scene here. But to talk about restaurants that are pushing the boundaries like James Beard, I think, would have wanted to, you have to really go back to, I think, the dean of Chicago cooking, and this guy, Charlie Trotter, right? Who in 1989 came out with an all vegetable tasting menu, something that they're trying to do now at a restaurant in New York called 11 Madison Park, and apparently failing. But he did that in 1989. He was doing, smoked scallops with ginger soy broth in the early 80s. He was doing tasting menus. He was pushing the boundaries. That's what I think of as like best new chef or best chef, outstanding chef. So the winner this year was a Black lady from South Carolina, I believe. I think I wrote, is her name written there?
Mashama Bailey.
She also won Best New Chef in 2019, and now she's Outstanding Chef. So that's what, 4 years apart. She's winning 2 awards, and we're talking about the entire country here. 300, 400 million people. How many chefs out there? And this woman that is cooking in a restaurant called The Gray, which is basically a formerly segregated bus station in the South, that she started with a businessman from Staten Island, a white guy. And she might be an amazing chef. I mean, I looked at her menu. It sounds fantastic. I love Southern food. But to me, when I think about people that are pushing the boundaries of Southern food, I think about Sean Brock. I think about people that are, utilizing every ancient grain they can find, or coming up with new and innovative techniques, or maybe, classic interpretations, but done differently, or introducing people to food in a new and enlightening way, or maybe in a classic way that hasn't been done in, hundreds of years. I don't really know what this woman is doing that's outstanding. I could be ignorant, and I'll definitely say, I'll be the first to say, I probably don't know enough to be an authority on this subject, but the fact that she's won Outstanding Chef, Best New Chef within 3 years, and then on top of that, you look at the person that won Best Chef, is it Great Lakes, or what's the one for Illinois? It's like Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan, right? Some 30, 40 million people. Just so happens to be another Black guy.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right. So, again, I have a very close friend that's a Black chef. I actually have several black friends that are chefs. I could probably count on my
Eric
finger.
Williams.
Virtue. I've heard his food is incredible. Honestly, it's in Heidelberg. I've heard his food is incredible. Is he the best? Is he just out there? What are we judging on? What's the criteria? And that's where I have the issue. He might be the best, but when you go to their website, when you go to the James Beard's website, you look at their mission, and what is their mission? I mean, the very first thing they say is inclusion.
Yeah.
And they talk about
right.
how
it's like, what does inclusion have to do with food?
What does inclusion have to do with
it seems like food should be the one area that is like just
colorblind.
You don't even see the chef. You don't see the chef. The chef is behind the scenes. It's like,
exactly.
I don't understand.
And I mean, granted, these people might be the best, but it just seems like on their website they say our mission, we have 40% BIPOC now, and our mission is to hire 50% BIPOC. And I just feel like, why? Why do we have to utilize, why do we have to create this reality that does not exist? And it's almost like we're trying to push the culture forward and pretend that just pushing it forward and then all of a sudden you're going to learn how to ride the bike, you know, and all of a sudden we're going to just be this
exactly
diverse, diverse society all of a sudden. That's not what kitchens are like. They're 10, 15% black people at most. They're 50, 60% Hispanics.
Right.
The rest are white.
Where's the Hispanics? Like, yeah, where's the Hispanics at? And
well, and then
like the whole background.
And then you look at the person that won for Great Lakes, and this one was like the icing on the cake, because you go to this restaurant's website, and they say, we serve decolonized food. Did you look at this? They don't serve, we don't, nothing, you know, decolonized.
Nothing colonized. It's been
no flour, no butter. We only serve, like, you know, tacos. And
they only serve pieces of spicy. What is decolonized food? I'm going to say something racist by accident. What does that even mean?
Yeah, the fact that that's a selling point to me, and I'm a person of color. And it's just amazing to me because, like, this, I don't want to hear about this when I go out to eat.
Well, I remember when we hang out in LA, you take me and everybody to these like incredible Chinese places that are way out in the San Gabriel Valley that are so authentic, and it's like chicken feet and like weird gelatinous, just crazy stuff. So it's like, it's funny. I mean, it's telling that you're not interested in decolonized food. Like, it doesn't even seem interesting. It just seems like,
no, not at all. I mean, look, honestly, like, the winners should be all Asian people up there. It should be all, because I mean, you want to talk about, you know, the unsung heroes of the kitchen. It's Asian women that we're not really talking about. I mean, I saw Mr. Juice, one in San Francisco. That's an incredible chef and a great restaurant. But I mean, again, I just feel like it's so directed at, you know, everybody but white people. Let's highlight everybody we can but Caucasians. And that's just not the reality. And I feel like they should focus more on the ingredients and the food and the crisis that we have in the fact that our food supply is just so screwed up, and the things that we're eating are full of plastic. Like, that should be the mission of James Beard. It should be, let's preserve and promote American food and the masters of it, wherever they are, whoever they are, whatever they look like. If everybody's white up there, like, why do we have to cry about that? I don't understand why that's a big, you know what I mean?
Which is, but this is happening. So why do you think this is happening? It's happening in the Oscars, right? The Oscars are now 100% about inclusion. Even, you know, like, the LSATs just got made in California like 10 times easier because it's not enough inclusion. So all these things that used to be about excellence or excelling are now about inclusion. So why is that? Why are we seeing this?
You know, honestly, I don't know. I think some of it is a pushback against, you know, the previous 4 years administration and this unapologetic attitude that people on the right had about we are who we are and we don't care and we're going to cuss. And, you know, now I think it's just kind of the pendulum swinging the other way. But I mean, I don't know how long it's going to last. I mean, you look at Harvard, for example, an Asian person sued, and that's going to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, Chinese Americans are not about affirmative action. They do not like this, you know, this attitude that everybody has. So I think you're going to really radically start to see minorities pushing back against this too. I don't really know why it's occurring. All I know is it annoys the shit out of me. I mean, I don't want to eat at a decolonized restaurant. I want to eat at the best restaurant.
Right, because you don't want to win something because you're, I mean, it's like, it's also just, this isn't even, it's like being good at food really is colorblind. It's not like, like it's not like basketball or like math that there really is like big differences between, like, yes, some races are good at different things. Food is a place that everybody is pretty much equally as good at. Like, it's not like white people are inherently, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like,
I mean, I'll even say that, like, you know, there are certain places in the world, and you read a book like Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, and you really understand that, for example, in Africa, there were just not a lot of carbohydrates. So they didn't really have the opportunity to develop, you know, that much diversity in their cuisine. Whereas you have Western Europe, and, you know, they were sailing to the Spice Islands and stealing shit from Mexico.
But you know who's fucking the worst food people in the world is the Netherlands and above. I mean, those people are terrible. I know.
Are you kidding me? No, I just completely disagree. Copenhagen and Stockholm had the wine lists in Stockholm are mind blowing.
Really? Okay. Well, you would know better. You would know much better.
Yeah,
yeah.
I would actually thought Stockholm had better food than Copenhagen, and Copenhagen had. I mean, I went to a 3 Michelin star restaurant in Copenhagen where you pull your fork out of a drawer, and I was just like, "What is this bullshit?" I don't know. It's just like they don't change your silverware; it's like in a drawer, and I'm like, "You can't give me a new fork. I have to pull it. I could just pull it out of the drawer at my house. Why am I even here?"
Well, this is why Asians are such a trump card to all of this, because it's totally true. It's like you can see that. Okay, if it's been a bunch of white people winning forever and we're pulling forks out of drawers in Denmark and just who gives a shit, and it's just like, oh, they're doing ingenuity, but the food isn't actually good. Then it's like, well, okay, you can understand them trying to get away from that, which is inclusivity, right? I get that. But if they're going, instead of, like, as you're saying, going to these incredible Asian places that are doing the craziest stuff you've ever seen, instead, if they're giving it to somebody who doesn't really deserve it, which it sounds like you're saying, that kind of.
I'm not saying that. I don't know. I'm just saying it's just like the little question mark above my head is raised, because I'm just like, how is it? It's almost like you're presenting a picture to me that cannot possibly be true.
Yeah.
It just cannot be possibly true that the best chefs in an area of the country that is predominantly white, full of predominantly white restaurateurs, and it's very hard for an African American to start a restaurant. It's very hard for a Black person to get through culinary school and to be respected and to find a following and to get funding. I mean, it's much, much, much harder to be a great Black chef than it is to be a great white chef, just like straight up. So how is it that these are the best people? Have they just risen above and become that great? And I mean, maybe that's the case. Like in the back of my mind, I keep thinking of the friends of mine that are Black, that are great chefs. And I'm like, yeah, they're incredible. They've had to go through some really tough situations to get to where they are. But I mean, being in the kitchen with Danielle Boulud and Wolfgang Puck and Thomas Keller, and like watching these people plate and cook, and it's just a different level. And I would just be surprised if that's where we're at with these awards. Maybe we are, but I think it's unlikely. And I feel like if I were to go to these people's websites and look at what they're doing and look at their backgrounds and see that they were, known for a particular dish or whatever, like even a hack like Dominique Ansel. I mean, I stood in line for the Cronut in New York. It was revolutionary. It was great. His Kuchen is fantastic. To watch that guy cook, yeah, he's all about gimmicks, but man, can that guy make pastry. He's incredible. His technique and his ability is undeniable. And I feel like you need something like that, an ability like that to make you an outstanding and a great chef. And I might be ignorant to the fact that these people might have it. I just feel like it just seems like it's wokeification.
Yeah,
it just seems like we're
it's cheapening the whole enterprise, because it's not actually appreciating excellence. It's appreciating something else. Okay, so before we leave, where do we go from here? So what happens now? Do you think there's going to be a backlash to this, or is just like what's happening with the Oscars, whose viewership has just literally like gone in fives? I think it was like 50 million to like 9 million. So is now James Beard just going to lose its, or are people just going to be like, oh, well, that doesn't matter anymore?
I think it already doesn't matter. I mean, I think it's already gotten there. I think nobody already cares, because at the end of the day, it's like a James Beard Award doesn't mean you make a lot of money. It doesn't mean you're automatically Danny. You've got $1 billion in the bank. And that's why I'm saying, like, I see an award like Outstanding Restaurateur, and I'm thinking like, okay, what are the qualifications for that? You should minimum have 3 restaurants doing $1 million plus in sales, or actually not even in sales, in profit. I don't understand how you can get that award without being an incredible business person. And this goes back to the chef as the CEO. Most chefs are not really spending a lot of their time in the kitchen. They're working on their business, not working in their business. And that for me makes a great chef. You have to rise above the kitchen, outside of the kitchen, and get to a point where you realize that your establishment not only is an operation that is providing for all of these people, but it has to actually turn a profit. This whole ideology that we're not going to turn a profit and we're going to donate money back. And I think another, I remember when I first got to LA and fine dining was collapsing, and it was just like all the fine dining restaurants were going away. And it was really difficult to find a serving job, a hospitality job. And I think that we might go through like a crypto winter for restaurants here pretty soon, where you really see a lot of these tasting menus or a lot of these restaurants that are championed for being, 87% BIPOC start to close. I mean, I looked at this woman that won Outstanding Restaurateur, and she cooked for Gabrielle Hamilton in New York.
This is Mashama Bailey.
Right.
Okay.
She cooked for Gabrielle Hamilton in New York. Is Gabrielle Hamilton in New York even still open? I don't think she is. I don't think these restaurants. I would love to look. I would love to look at a lot of these people that win these awards and say, what is your success rate after you win this award? How long are you open? Are you still cooking? Are you still in a restaurant? Do you create a dynasty that spawns hundreds and hundreds of chefs and become a dean and a grand master? Or do you go, are you doing interviews and eater videos, and are you doing, Food and Wine magazine or whatever at this point because your restaurant's closed? What happens? And I think that is going to be really telling, because I think a lot of these people that are winning these awards aren't really going to go anywhere or do anything. And I think that in of itself disenfranchises and cheapens the brand. I think that probably,
it brings it all down and down.
I think that probably hurt Oscars too, because they started giving the Oscars to people that you're like, that person won the Oscar.
Who?
Like nobody even saw that movie.
Which sucks, because it's like acting is also another one of these things where it's like there's no need to do that. Like the people of color and everybody rise to the top when they're good.
Exactly.
It's like Denzel.
Sidney Poitier.
Denzel's as good as anybody. It's not like it's like I feel like these guilty white people, they think like,
we've got to give it to
the black person, because otherwise they're never gonna figure it out. And it's like, that's obviously not true. It's like they just don't need to think that, and it takes away from Denzel. That's the thing. It makes it so that now Maharaja Ali is on the level of Denzel, which is so not true. You know what I mean? Like Denzel's so far above that guy.
He was pretty good in was that True Detective? He was good in
he's like B grade. No offense, Maharaja, but it's like compared to Denzel's like top level. And to say that, somebody like that is on the same level as Denzel, it's just like, it's bullshit. And it's like the white people who are guilty are just digging their hole even deeper, because it's like all you're doing is cheapening black people even more. You're just saying like,
I mean, it's not just black people. I mean, it's gay people, it's trans people, it's everybody. So I don't know what's going to happen. Honestly, I have no idea. But I don't really go out that much anymore. Honestly, I'm like kind of disconnected from the food world. So I almost feel like
how's Chicago?
It's fine, it's good. I mean, it's a steakhouse town, which honestly, like, I think I used to talk a lot of shit about it, but now, if I'm gonna open a restaurant, I'm opening a steakhouse. I mean, it's a much better model. You're selling an expensive product. People are paying a premium for it. People are paying for salty, watered down vodka and overpaying for it. And it's, they're blue cheese not olives. That's an extra $7. It's just like it's a better model. You don't have to just constantly innovate, decolonize your food so people will think you're great.
We're constantly decolonizing our food, and by that we mean just making it really cheap, hollowing it out and then selling it for the maximum price. That's what hedge funds do, and they hate food.
And it's like, I see all of these, I keep an eye on the LA scene, and I'm like, man, there's just so many brand new spots out there. And I'm like, man, how many are these? I mean, I worked in 21 restaurants in 14 years. Wow. 21. And how many of those are still around? Like probably less than 10%.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I think it's, who knows what's going to happen. There's not, but you have restaurants here like Gibson's that's been here for like, since 1850. Like Abraham Lincoln ate at half the restaurants here, you know?
Right.
So I feel like that's what you need to go for in any business, in any pursuit. You need to go for, you need to be Jeff Bezos. You need to be playing the long game. And I think these restaurants are just not playing the long game. They're not looking for that ingredient or that dish that's going to make people drive from, Kalamazoo because they have to have, the triple fried steak. I mean, they're just not doing that here, or not here, rather there, in places. So I don't know. I just think it's going to be a wholesale change. It's going to be cloud kitchens, and we're going to be eating in the metaverse, and it's all going to be on apps. And unless you're transgender, like, you'll have to pay a surcharge. That's probably. But anyway, this has been fun.
All right, man. Thank you. Thanks for coming out. I'm going to be in Chicago soon, so we'll talk.
All right, cool. We'll go somewhere and we'll decolonize.
Okay, we'll decolonize.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, bye.
All right.